Happy New Year. Actually it's New Year's Eve when I'm filming this, but happy soon to be New Year. So I just came up with this idea for kind of like a special edition Harry Potter reading. Since I know that we are still on Philosopher's Stone here, I actually happen to have a hardcover Latin version of the same book, so I thought I'll read like half a chapter in English and then half a chapter in Latin, because I know that some people might find like the kind of nonsensical sounds, if you don't know Latin, to be relaxing, and you kind of just don't have to because you don't really have to pay attention. Not that you have to pay attention anyway, but yeah. So if you are interested in this, stay tuned. Okay, so starting with the English, for those of you who actually want to like follow along with the book and everything. Okay, so we are on chapter 3. So I'm gonna read like, oops. It's called The Letters from No One. And I'm just going to read to here. Okay. So here we go with The Letters from No One. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my god. I'm just trying to get closer. Go away. I'm sleepy. But I gotta stay up to watch the ball fall. So, here we go. The escape of the Brazilian boa constrictor earned Harry his longest ever punishment. By the time he was allowed out of his cupboard again, the summer holidays had started, and Dudley had already broken his new cine camera, crashed his remote control aeroplane, and, first time on his racing bike, knocked down old Mrs. Fig as she crossed Privet Drive on her crutches. Harry was glad school was over, but there was no escaping Dudley's gang, who visited the house every single day. Piers, Dennis, Malcolm, and Gordon were all big and stupid, but as the rest of them were all quite happy to join. But as Dudley was the biggest and stupidest of the lot, he was the leader. The rest of them were all quite happy to join in Dudley's favorite sport, Harry hunting. This is why Harry spent as much time as possible out of the house, wandering around and thinking about the end of the holidays, where he could see a tiny ray of hope. When September came, he would be going off to secondary school, and, for the first time in his life, he wouldn't be with Dudley. Dudley had a place at Uncle Vernon's old school, Smeltings. Piers Polkiss was going there too. Harry, on the other hand, was going to Stonewall High, the local comprehensive. Dudley thought this was very funny. They stuffed people's heads down the toilet first day at Stonewall, he told Harry. Want to come upstairs and practice? No thanks, said Harry. The poor toilet's never had anything as horrible as your head down it. It might be sick. Then he ran before Dudley could work out what he'd said. One day in July, Aunt Petunia took Dudley to London to buy his Smeltings uniform, leaving Harry at Mrs. Fig's. Mrs. Fig wasn't as bad as usual. It turned out she'd broken her leg, tripping over one of her cats, and she didn't seem quite as fond of them as before. She let Harry watch television, and gave him a bit of chocolate cake that tasted as though she'd had it for several years. That evening, Dudley paraded around the living room for the family and his new uniform. Smeltings boys wore maroon tailcoats, orange knickerbockers, and flat straw hats called boaters. They also carried knobbly sticks, used for hitting each other while the teachers weren't looking. This was supposed to be good training for later in life. As he looked at Dudley and his new knickerbockers, Uncle Vernon said gruffly that it was the proudest moment of his life. Aunt Petunia burst into tears and said she couldn't believe it was her Dudleykins. He looked so handsome and grown up. Harry didn't trust himself to speak. He thought, too, of his ribs might have already cracked from trying so hard not to laugh. There was a horrible smell in the kitchen next morning when Harry went in for breakfast. It seemed to be coming from a large metal tub in the sink. He went to have a look. The tub was full of what looked like dirty rags swimming in grey water. "What's this?" he asked Aunt Petunia. Her lips tightened, as they always did if he dared to ask a question. "Your new school uniform," she said. Harry looked in the bowl again. "Oh," he said. "I didn't realize it had to be so wet." "Don't be stupid," snapped Aunt Petunia. "I'm dyeing some of Dudley's old grey things for you. It'll look just like everyone else's when I've finished." Harry seriously doubted this, but thought it best not to argue. He sat down at the table and tried not to think about how he was going to look on his first day at Stonewall High. Like he was wearing bits of old elephant skin, probably. Dudley and Uncle Vernon came in, both with wrinkled noses because of the smell from Harry's new uniform. Uncle Vernon opened his newspaper as usual, and Dudley banged his smelting stick, which he carried everywhere on the table. They heard the click of the letter box and flap of letters on the doormat. "Get the post, Dudley," said Uncle Vernon from behind his paper. "Make Harry get it. Get the post, Harry. Make Dudley get it. Poke him with your smelting stick, Dudley." Harry dodged the smelting stick and went to get the post. 3 things lay on the doormat: a postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, who was holidaying on the Isle of Wight, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, and a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up and stared at it, his heart twanging like a giant elastic band. No one ever in his whole life had written to him. Who would? He had no friends. No one. No other relatives. He didn't belong to the library, so he'd never even got rude notes asking for books back. Yet here it was, a letter, addressed so plainly there could be no mistake. Mr. H. Potter, The Cupboard Under the Stairs, 4 Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. The envelope was thick and heavy, made of yellowish parchment, and the address was written in emerald green ink. There was no stamp. Turning the envelope over, his hand trembling, Harry saw a purple wax seal bearing a coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake, surrounding a large letter H. "Hurry up, boy," shouted Uncle Vernon from the kitchen. "What are you doing, checking for letter bombs?" He chuckled at his own joke. Harry went back to the kitchen, still staring at the letter. He handed Uncle Vernon the bill and the postcard, sat down and slowly began to open the yellow envelope. Uncle Vernon ripped open the bill, snorted in disgust, and flipped over the postcard. "Marge's ill," he informed Aunt Petunia. "Ate a funny whelk." "Dad!" said Dudley suddenly. "Dad, Harry's got something." Harry was on the point of unfolding his letter, which was written on the same heavy parchment as the envelope, when it was jerked sharply out of his hand by Uncle Vernon. "It's mine," said Harry, trying to snatch it back. "Who'd be writing to you?" sneered Uncle Vernon, shaking the letter open with one hand and glancing at it. His face went from red to green faster than a set of traffic lights. And it didn't stop there. Within seconds, it was the grayish white of old porridge. "Petunia," he gasped. Dudley tried to grab the letter to read it, but Uncle Vernon held it high out of his reach. Aunt Petunia took it curiously and read the first line. For a moment it looked as though she might faint. She clutched her throat and made a choking noise. "Vernon! Oh my goodness, Vernon!" They stared at each other, seeming to have forgotten that Harry and Dudley were still in the room. Dudley wasn't used to being ignored. He gave his father a sharp tap on the head with a smelting stick. "I want to read the letter," he said loudly. "I want to read it," said Harry furiously, "as it's mine." "Get out, both of you," croaked Uncle Vernon, stuffing the letter back inside its envelope. Harry didn't move. "I want my letter," he shouted. "Let me see it," demanded Dudley. "Out!" roared Uncle Vernon, and he took both Harry and Dudley by the scruffs of their necks and threw them into the hall, slamming the kitchen door behind them. Harry and Dudley promptly had a furious but silent fight over who would listen at the keyhole. Dudley won, so Harry, his glasses dangling from one ear, lay flat on his stomach to listen to the crack between the door and the floor. "Vernon," Aunt Petunia was saying in a quivering voice, "look at the address. How could they possibly know where he sleeps? You don't think they're watching the house?" "Watching, spying, might be following us," muttered Uncle Vernon wildly. "But what should we do, Vernon? Should we write back? Tell them we don't want—" Harry could see Uncle Vernon's shiny black shoes pacing up and down the kitchen. "No," he said finally. "No, we'll ignore it. If they don't get an answer, yes, that's best. We won't do anything. But I'm not having one in the house, Petunia. Don't we swear when we took him in we'd stamp out that dangerous nonsense?" That evening when he got back from work, Uncle Vernon did something he'd never done before. He visited Harry in his cupboard. "Where's my letter?" said Harry, the moment Uncle Vernon had squeezed through the door. "Who's writing to me?" "No one. It was addressed to you by mistake," said Uncle Vernon shortly. "I have burned it." "It was not a mistake," said Harry angrily. "It had my cupboard on it." "Silence!" yelled Uncle Vernon, and a couple of spiders fell from the ceiling. He took a few deep breaths and then forced his face into a smile, which looked quite painful. Yes, Harry, about this cupboard. Your aunt and I have been thinking. You're really getting a bit big for it. We think it might be nice if you moved into Dudley's second bedroom." "Why?" said Harry. "Don't ask questions," snapped his uncle. "Take the stuff upstairs now." Okay, now I'm going to pause and switch to the Latin version, which is Harrius Potter et Philosophy Lapis. Sorry if I have a really crappy accent. Okay. Caput tertium epistulae annulo missae. Propter fuquam boae constrictoris Basiliensis Harrius poenam omnium longissimam dedit, cum tandem e permitterator rursus armario exire, corporans feriae aestivae et Dudley jam noam cinematographicam machinulam fergerat, aeroplanam e longinquo directum interam praecipituerat. Primum in birotula cursoria vectus annum illam dominam fig. Dae caret dum gestationem ligostrorum baculis injectia transgreditor. By the way, excuse me if my pronunciation is absolutely horrendous. I have not taken Latin in about 3 years, so it's been a little bit. Harrius gaudebat quod studius liberatus erat, sed gregem elo dodleanum non poterat vitare, qui non omitebat domum quotidie visitare. Piers, Dudley, Malcolm, Gordonque omnes erant magni et stulti, sed Dudley, cum esset omnium maximus, et stultissimus erat stux gregis. Ceteris ad modum placebat inter esse ludo. Quem Dudley maxime amabat, Harry venandi. Haec erat causa cor Harrius tantum temporis quantum poterat. Forius ducerit. Circumerans et finem feriarum prospiciens. Ubi vestigium rerum meliorum videre poterat. Mense septembri apeterus erat ad scholam secundiarum, et quod nunquam antea considerat sine Dudleo futurus erat. Dudley acceptus erat a schola nomine Smeltings, cuius avunculis Vernon alumnus erat. Piers Pulchus quoque illuc iturus erat. Harrius autem iturus erat ad scholam nomine Lapidomerus altus, quem omnes liberi regionis frequentabant. Quod Dudley ridiculissimum esse arbitrabator. Apud Lapidomerus and this is just a funny video. Apud Lapidomorenses primo die capita hominum in latrinas detrundator, dixitario, anvis sursum ascendere, ut rem ipse experiaris, benin, inquit Harrius, abnuens, in latrinam illam, miseram nunquam quidquam tam horribile quam caput tuum detrusum est. Potest fieri ut aegriscat. Tum aufugit priusquam Dudley intelligret, quid dixisit. Die quodquam mensis Iuli, matertera Petunia, Dudleyam Londinam duxit ut habituum scholasticum emeret. Hario apud dominam fig relicto. Domina fig minus molesta solito fuit. Crus enim pregarat in fele via lapsa neg videbator eas ita ut antea amare. Hario permissit televisionem spectare et frustrum libi e socolate facti dedit quod, ut sapor quidem indicabat mortos iam annos, servatum eret. Vespere ilios Dei, Dudley habitum novissimum familiae in Caesario ostendit. Discipuli scholae Smeltings vestes caudatas, colore purpureo geribant, brachas salutas transatlantici, generis luteo colore, petasos planos et stramenticios nomine lintrarios, baculos quoque nodosos feribant, quibus alios pulsabant imprenditibus magistris. Sic enim ut fert opinio aetatam adultam providebant. Avunculas Vernon, cum videret Dudleyum novis, indutum bracis, rauca negavit, voce se unquam tota vita elatiorem fuisse. Matertera Petunia autem lacrimis, effusis dixit se hominum tam pulchrum, et adultum videre ut vix crediterit eum esse parvulum pulchrum, et adultum videre ut vix crediterit eum esse parvulum didulum suum. Harrius voce uti non audebat. Veritas non costas duas iam rupiset. Conans risum suprimere. Postri die mane, cum Harrius in collinam introvisit iantaturus. Ibi erat odor taeterimus. Videbator venire Alabro magno et metallico infusorio posito. Inspectum iet. Labrum videbator plenum esse paniculis sordidis in aqua glauca natantibus. Okay, so that wasn't quite up to the same spot as the other one, but it would have taken me like a very long time to struggle through it, and I just wanted to kind of give you guys a sample to see if it was actually relaxing or not. So if it was totally the opposite of relaxing, let me know and I won't do it again. I'm sorry that I really struggled through that. If you guys want next time, I can just go a lot slower. Or if you guys like that speed, let me know what you think. And yeah, I really appreciate your feedback, guys. Have a really happy new year and a wonderful